So today I'm going to speak about experiment we did in Dresden together with Saarbrücken by a small group. We're working for a big project called CPEC, and we're focusing on how to represent proof in a more understandable way for humans, so usability, which we touched in the previous discussion. So, I mean, meta question we want to address, how to explain the decision made by automated system. Of course, if this automated system is logic-based, and this decision is made as a result of a reasoning process, so we can provide a formal proof as an explanation. Of course, you're already familiar with this notation. Not all formal proofs are easy and user-friendly. And yeah, if you just join my talk, I will give a short recap later. So we want to improve formal proof representation, or we want to investigate which factors are crucial for users when they need to read a formal proof and understand it. And just this question creates another one, because it's not as simple as you may think. So first of all, formal proof very depends on the underlying logic. If you go for a lightweight logic as EL, axioms will be more compact, while if you go for a high expressive logic, even understanding axiom, not speaking about inference steps in the proof, will be already hard by itself, not considering size of the proof or other factors. So logic matters. Then users, depending again who are we speaking about. If I'm speaking about logicians or scientists, which used to read long and formal texts, they can read formal proof without any help, without additional tools which facilitate understanding. So, but if I speak about students or commoner people, apparently we need to do some modification before we present it to that kind of users. And another question, how to measure understandability, because it's quite a vague notion. So even speaking about students attending lectures, if they speak half of the lecture with friends, but they occasionally look at the screen and they understood some slides, they could still say that they understood all the lectures. So understandability, it's not just very easy to distinguish. It's not just black and white. There is a gray area. And the last question, which we address in this research, particularly, which representation we need to choose here. Because it's still formal proof, it should follow some definition of the follow proof. Of course, we can help to facilitate perceiving it, but it should be still formal proof. Of course, we can modify it and make it represent it as a tree structure, or skip some steps, or make it linear, or verbalize it. So make use of natural language, use colors. So representation can be different, but also it's not the only question we faced. Of course, what we want to prove, how it should be represented. Again, shall we represent present formal proof for something simple? Shall it be just letters? Shall it be known domain, unknown domain? So everything we discussed in the preparation of this experiment. And returning back to the main question of this research, which representation to choose. So first of all, I will tell you about DL theory. Of course, Patrick already described everything you need to know, but just in case you join only my talk, I want to have a common ground for everything. So in my presentation, capitalized words will be concept name describing sets of entities like birds, cages. Lowercase words are roles. They describe relations between entities like sits in, lays. Also, we have a complex concepts describing all entities. So, for example, yeah, sits in the cage. It describes all entities that sit in a cage. Also, yeah, another complex concept is lays eggs. It means that all entities that lay, it describes all entities that lay only eggs or do not, and lays only eggs and not something else, not larvae, like, or something else. Also, we can conjunct our even complex concept, and you see bird, which sits in a cage. And all these building blocks can be combined into a knowledge through axioms. So you see Tweety, who is a cage. So yeah, a concept Tweety is a subconcept of cage bird. So every Tweety is a cage bird, and that is concept subsumption. And equivalence, that cage bird by definition or equivalent to a bird which sits in a cage. And of course, you can express equivalence with double subsumption. So yeah, it is intuitive example of ontology. So ontology is collection of axioms, and from this ontology, a new statement can follow. So here we describe that penguin is synonym for something has wings and doesn't fly. So I'm not going to read it. And this example was also taken from the logic literature. It's not far-fetched, it's quite famous in belief revision theory about tweeties. And that ontology is famous because it implies a counterintuitive statement. It implies that Tweety is a penguin. Who is not familiar with American cartoons, I should reassure you, Tweety is not penguin, it's a canary. But because an ontology was made, it contains some mistakes, and that's why it implies wrong consequence. And for logical implication, usually is used this horizontal line, which means that in all words where all axioms above the line holds, it means that the consequence must hold to. Must hold to. And of course, if you see the wrong consequence, you may be interested how this consequence was derived. And you may request a proof or explanation why it happened. So in general, proofs can be different shape. Also, it may look like this slide. So basically you show ontology and the consequence, and so it's following. It is it is a formal proof as well, but of course it's not very informative. So to make this knowledge compilation not in one lump sum or more in portions, you can use consequence-based reasoning rules. Patrick also mentioned that, but I provide here a simplified version and shortened. So that's how rules may look like. So they say that if you have an axiom which looks like equivalence axiom, it will follow that subsumption also holds. So that's its nature of this relation, equivalence relation. Or if you say that some concept is is part of contains 3 properties, it possesses all of them. So if C is subsumed by D and E and F, it will be subsumed by each of them. So for that, later I will use transitive rules. So transitive rules say that if something contained in another concept D, and D is subsumed by F, then C will be subsumed by F. So, and that type of rule which is human brain can perceive very easily. So applying such of rules, you return back to our example of the Tweety, which is penguin. You can see a formal proof where for the statement, and leaves of this formal proof will be ontology axioms. Intermediate step will be obtained by applying rules, consequence-based reasoning rules to this ontology axioms. So you can combine the knowledge from ontology axioms in portions. And of course, some of the statements which you derived have more value than others. So you can claim that some steps are more crucial for understanding how the proof works, and some will be less valuable, or they can be shortened or skipped. So for example, if you look in this not highlighted axioms, you can notice that they were created by applying rules, which is equivalence implies subsumption, which I mentioned, and it's quite intuitive. Or if you have a chain of transitive rules, you can also skip intermediate elements and just merge everything into one big transitive rule. And by skipping these intermediate steps, which can be grasped intuitively as well, and not just following a list of the rules which you fixed before, you can obtain a shorter version of a proof where you kept on the parts which were derived by some rule, which may be not very easy to grasp by itself. So you keep on the crucial parts of the proof, and all intermediate steps, you skip it. Also, another way how you can present a formal proof, you can verbalize the reasoning, each of the inference steps. So Here you can see a template when you have an inference that Tweety has part wings and not flying. And penguin, by definition, has part wings and also not flying. It implies that Tweety is a penguin. So if you use formal proof, then you take each axiom and verbalize it, because most of the axioms are still derived from ontology or just combined part. And this inference step can be expressed by a sentence which can be taken from every English grammar, how to argument your position. So you just use since or help word since, or from the fact that these two facts hold, then the third fact also holds. So that is how we did for our research. We verbalized our formal proofs. So we started with long formal proof, which we obtained by applying fixed set of inference rules. Then we made it shorter by skipping some trivial steps. And each of these formats we transform into a textual form. So that's why how I obtain our 4 different proof representation. And this 4 different proof representation has 2 variables, if it's long or short, and if it's formal, means that it uses mathematical symbols or it's textual representation. So in our research, we stated the following hypothesis, which we wanted to test. So hypothesis you need to state first, and then you discuss how the experiment should be made. We claim we wanted to test if it's true that shorter proofs are easier to understand than longer version. Second hypothesis, introduce a new variable, which is called moderator variable, which is experience in logic. We claim that people who has less experience in logic, so not familiar at all, for them reading a long text will be easier than try to understand short formal proof. And on the opposite, experts in logic, or more or less experienced people, they would understand long formal proof better than long text. So after stating this hypothesis, the following design was made for the experiment. So people from Saarbrücken represent psychology in this research. We asked students to participate in our experiment. Students should have experience in logic, just in order to be able to demonstrate some formal proofs without extra 2 hours lecturing them. And we chose 4 examples from medical domain: cell culture, DNA, T cells, amputation. And we found them in the literature on DL explanation. We adapt these examples to make them comparable in difficulty. Then 4 different proofs representation was created. So you can see short, long text of formal. So all this combination, in the end, it resulted into 16 different variations. And we ran our study. We had training phase when we explained students what they should do, and study phase when they read 4 proof representations. It's called within subject design. And then they rate the proof and rank them. So rate the proof, they say that on the scale from 1 to 5, how easy it was to understand the proof. So after each proof, they said that. And ranking, they compare proof to each other. So bonus slides, that is examples we used for our study. That is for curious listeners. They're medical and they're a bit hard to read because of the medical terms, but it was done on purpose because we didn't want domain knowledge to interfere with their understanding. I'm not going to explain it much, but that's, you can see how it looked like, what student experience with that. And procedure, we did our study online with Zoom and GoToMeeting. We assessed 16 students with some experience, as you can see in the table. For the results, we used multiple linear regression with contrast coding. Different contrasts coded different variables. So one contrast distinguish short and long proof, another one formal and textual proof, and third one contrasted their how they work together, these two variables. And for the hypothesis 2 and 3, because it has additional variable, it was used moderator analysis because experience was a moderator variable in this result. And for ranking in the end, so when students compare proof between compare representation of different proofs, so they say that we like first proof better than second one, and third one was better than fourth one, was used Friedman's ANOVA. So the results. Hypothesis 1 was confirmed by our data, and indeed we proved that shorter proof was rated easier than longer one, and it was independent from the presentation format. So who is interested for the, in linear regression statistical values, you can see them here. Unfortunately, hypothesis 2 and 3 was not confirmed by our data, either because our experiment design was not perfect for that, but we couldn't confirm. We could, there was like some dependence noticed. So for example, who experienced students rated proofs easier, but it's not stated in our hypothesis. So it is not part of our experiment design. That's why we cannot confirm hypothesis 2 and 3. And if you speak about ranking, for which we also used statistical methods, this ranking showed that long text was, so short text was always preferred over long text. And so short text on the green side, and it's always ranked to 1 or 2. So it was more preferred, and long text was always ranked 3 and 4, which is less favorable. And short formal, which is yellow, was preferred over long text. We also had qualitative results, which we listened to students' opinion about what they think about this experiment, what they think about proofs, and formal proofs, most of them. So each participant for himself, herself, they claim that formal proofs are easier to understand and clearer. And in conclusion, what we learned that we need to focus on shortening proof in the future work, in study or in theoretical research. In theoretical research, then we want to try combine different elements and analyze them. Maybe it will facilitate understanding as well. Other proof representation may be shorter, maybe combine verbalization plus formal structure, make everything online, and everything we should focus on usability. So a user should be in the middle, so in the center of work. And thank you for your attention.